Thank you all. I love the virtual claps and the video claps. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I am super excited to be here. I'm super excited that a program of this sort exists, and I'm happy to round up this session of amazing talks. And I would love to just engage with you over the next few minutes about how we as scientists can co-create science education initiatives through community engaged research. So, to provide a little bit of context, I just wanted to start with like how I became a community engaged neuroscientist. So, I come from a very large family of 7, and our family wears so many hats in the community, and that just nurtured me into the scientist and the researcher that I am today. So to start off with my dad, he's a filmmaker. He's also a technician at the Virginia Employment Commission, but he's also a substitute teacher and really is excited about ways in which he can use the filmmaking and the arts to teach and encourage the next generation. Similarly, my mom is a pastor, so we were always out in the community doing initiatives, helping, serving, staying up late nights, waking up early mornings. And she's also a teacher. She worked her way up through the educational system, starting off as the computer lady at a local elementary school, then has worn hats in the administration, and also serves right now as the language coordinator of her school. And my brother followed right in her footsteps. He's also a teacher and a pastor. Another one of my sisters is actually a computer scientist, so she followed in my footsteps as a woman in STEM. I have another sister who's a teacher, and then a brother who's a video game developer. So all of my family has kind of nurtured me into kind of my definition of myself is community engaged neuroscientist, and I wouldn't be who I am without their support, and then the hats that we've had to play as a family. So here's kind of a schematic overview of all of the research opportunities that I've engaged in. I was afforded an opportunity to work in a science lab at 13, which was completely unheard of at the time. I worked at the University of Michigan using the fruit fly's eye as a model of the human brain. And this experience deeply resonated with me because at the same time, we were starting to see signs of dementia and my maternal grandmother. So I'm in the lab studying this fly's eye, and then, like, in my real life at home, seeing my maternal grandmother begin to forget my name and begin to forget things, even about other family members. And for me, that planted a seed about, oh, a scientist is a job. I remember growing up, I heard you could only be a doctor and a lawyer. So those were my main two options. But actually working in a research lab afforded a new outlook for me. And I definitely ran with it. So as you can see in this timeline, I've worked with fish, I've worked with human brain tissue, I've worked with data sets. I've pretty much done it all in the research scheme. But one thing that stands out about me and the approach that the Connect organization takes is that I've integrated community engaged outreach throughout these experiences. And so the first main experience that I wanted to go over was actually during my time at the College of William and Mary. So growing up, community was always a big part of my life. So when I applied to college, everyone was expecting that I was going to do something in the community. And thankfully, the College of William and Mary had this Sharp Community Engaged Scholars Program. So after you received your admissions into the university, you could apply to Sharp, and their goal was to incorporate academic studies with research with community engagement. And this was very attractive for me because I already knew that I wanted to integrate these three hats, but to have a formal program really made it a possibility. And another thing that they were focused on was how do you do community based research and teaching? So, not just going into a community with an idea that you have, but really working with the community to create the idea, to implement the idea, and also to ensure that the community has the resources needed to sustain that idea. And also, how do you teach that? So, not just you keeping that knowledge, but how do you multiply that knowledge into the next generation? And then the last part about this community was that it was a living and learning community. So we all lived in probably the worst dorm of the university, where we actually had a lot of classes together. We also had dorm activities together. And so you're in these classes with these people, but you're also seeing how they operate on a day to day, so it provided a really deep community of people like me, people who didn't want to just go to college, go to class, and go home, but people who wanted to engage with the community in meaningful ways. So I would say the Sharp program really transformed the way my entire research trajectory went on. And I will say this, that it was really nice, after I graduated, they wrote an article about my time in the Sharp Community Engaged program. And one of the key things I noted was that I took a class on African American English, which I never even heard of. But the whole class was talking about the vernacular that many African Americans use and how this is an actual language that should be respected in the academy. And as a part of that symposium and that seminar, we had to actually do research in the community. And my research was actually based on my own experience. So I went into William and Mary not only knowing that I wanted to do community engaged research, but also that I wanted to be a neuroscience major. So I already went to William and Mary knowing that that was going to be my major. And I was able to conduct research on this concept called the leaky stem pipeline, which it has its pros and cons. But the whole thought about this concept is that women and Black or other racial minoritized groups are disproportionately leaving STEM and science, technology, engineering, and math at disproportionate rates. And the question in the field is still, why is that happening? And how can we ensure that all groups have access to quality educational experiences? And so I found myself as someone in this leaky pipeline. I was often the only Black person or the only woman in a lot of my introductory science courses. And I really wanted to understand why was that happening. So, as a way to understand this, I went back to the roots of okay, when did I most feel supported in getting into science education? And when did I not feel supported? And it goes back for me as early as elementary school. I remember my teachers would often praise me for writing neatly or my reading abilities, but I was never praised for my mathematics or science acumen. Oftentimes, the male students were praised for that. And so I began to do this research by partnering with a local elementary school named Matthew Whaley. And I was able to be a classroom assistant in a second grade class. And I was able to actually hear these conversations between teachers and students and actually came up with five different strategies that teachers could utilize to ensure that they're praising female and male students in a way that will actually pursue their STEM interests. And a part of that was I also advanced in my coursework to take a formal community-based participatory research course, which is exactly how it sounds. So you go into the community, you allow the community to participate in the research, and they become co-creators of whatever gets developed. And one of the key professors that I had was named Dr. David Aday. He was a sociologist, and he would tell us these stories about how he would go into communities. He would have a little notepad. He would take notes. He would engage in the communities. And through that partnership, they would create these amazing research initiatives that would lead to social change. And so he actually gave us a class assignment to find an issue in your community. Think about how you would partner with the community to participate in this research. And we had to do a presentation. So after my presentation, the whole class was like, you have to actually do this. So they were like, this is not just a classroom assignment. Like, this is something that you need to do. And so I actually proposed to do a summer program to combat the leaky STEM pipeline. What I found in my research was that summer was one of the main periods of time that students lose all the content that they learned the previous year, which makes it harder for the teacher at their next grade level because they have to spend basically half the school year reteaching everything that they just taught the previous year. And so I said, what if there was a summer program where students would still be learning over the summer, still be engaging in coursework and coursework specifically surrounding the science, technology, engineering, and math? And then one of the unique points, because this was back in 2013. So at the time, it was just STEM, STEM, STEM. But my unique approach was to add the arts as a way to make STEM more exciting for groups that are more hesitant about those fields. And so I brought this idea to my mom, and she was actually the principal or the assistant principal at Thomas C. Bouchard Middle School. And she loved it. She was like, "You could do, this at my school. There's no problem with that." Until she presented it to higher leadership, and they said, "Because, you are related to her, there's a conflict of interest." And, it really crushed me because I had this amazing idea. I had my professor and my classmates excited about it. I had my mom excited about it, but I was basically told no, it's not feasible. And so I kind of wallowed in that because I felt like a lot of my work and my efforts were just being dismissed because of something outside of my control. But to my surprise, my mom was able to contact the East End Boys and Girls Club and provided a partnership pivot where the East End Boys and Girls Club, it was an out of school time organization. So my original goal was to partner with schools. But with this partnership pivot, we actually said, what would it look like if you partner with a community organization outside of the school time? And that way you will have a closer connect to the community and you would have less administrative oversight that would hinder, any of your creative ideas. And so thankfully, the East End Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club, they were willing and excited for me to pilot this summer program that we ended up naming STEAMTRIX. So here's a few snapshots of what this program looked like. As you can see from the pictures, lots of smiles, lots of creativity, and it really was a staple in the community that summer. So we started off this program with a pre-assessment where I felt very uncomfortable about this, and that's something we can talk about in the Q&A. Um, for me, I feel that oftentimes students are already over tested. So me asking them to do another assessment felt very wrong to me. But something that we were intentional about was trying to make the pre-assessment fun. So we utilize two different frameworks that I will get into in some later slides. But essentially, we gamified the assessment and allowed the students to get buy-in from that. And then we also made it very clear to them that if at any point in time they didn't want to proceed with it, they did not have to. So we gave them that agency. We try to make it fun. And ultimately, we were able to collect some data on this. Then, for our first session, I put some stars by pictures that are from that first session. We actually did a science experiment. The whole summer's theme was called Make Your Summer Sweet. And the science session was actually a chemistry experience where they actually were tasked to turn liquid into solid. And of course, they made ice cream in a bag. That session was a complete blast. It locked all the students in. They were sold. They wanted to all be chemists at that point. They also informed me that they were able to go back home and do this same experiment with their family. So we really hooked them in on that first session. And another key thing was that I also showed them scientists that were examples and trailblazers in the field. So they had also like role models that they could look up to and aspire to. And also myself, even though I think I was a freshman, or I just finished my freshman year of college, but they also looked up to me as a role model of what a scientist could look like for themselves. And so they had a lot of fun, but they were also learning key concepts in chemistry, molecules, all that fun stuff, experiments, and really starting to absorb some of the content that they may have been forgetting from the school year. Then in session 2 was our technology session where they were tasked to actually create a jingle for a fictional ice cream truck company. So pairing that science experiment where they made ice cream now into a technology of, and then that technology also incorporated the arts where they had to be very creative. So using those musical technology metrics, we gave them some equipment to record, and, you can see in the pictures, some of them really got into it with their headphones, with their lyrics, and some of the best songs, were, remixes of popular songs. So, someone took, one of the at that time, this was like 2013 or 2014. There was that song Classic Man that was very popular. But one of the groups remixed it and they were like, I'm the ice cream man. So they really got really creative with it and began to envision themselves as musical technologists. We also had a local recording artist come in to talk to the students about their life as a musical technologist and what it would look like for the students to pursue this as a career. For our engineering, we actually had them build edible ice cream trucks, using all the sweets, all the treats, and, they're at some of the groups that were a little bit older, they were also tasked to ensure that their ice cream truck could move, but for some of the younger groups, we allowed them to just make a model replica. But through that, they learned about mechanical engineering. We also had some examples of engineers in the field to just show them, like, this is a career. And then we also try to prioritize like famous people that they really would know of. And we're like, did you know that this person actually has a degree in engineering? And their minds were blown because they just began to reimagine what the possibilities could look like for them. For the arts, they had to create a logo for this fictional ice cream company. And then we also challenged them to create self-portraits because we were really intentional about how are they envisioning themselves? What are they seeing when they reflect on themselves? And then also, who are they aspiring to become? And similarly, we gave them examples of artists. We did have some local artists come into and also talk about their experiences in the visual arts and also demystify some of that those negative stereotypes about struggling artists, but showing that you could still thrive in this career. And then we did also incorporate some of the performing arts as well by giving them multiple opportunities to perform, to speak in public. So we're building all sorts of skills in this session. And then our final session was mathematics, where they were actually able to create business plans for this fictional ice cream truck. And I will say they came up with some of the most intentional and thoughtful business plans that were also the same checklist that Forbes uses to develop business plans. They were following that same model. And mind you, we had some students that were only 5 years old all the way up to 17. So we saw a wide range. But some of the highlights was one of the groups, they said our unique position for our business is that we're selling sugar-free ice cream for those who are struggling with diabetes in the community. And my mind was blown because that is the next cutting edge thoughts and ideas that are really going to push our society forward. So we were really excited to hear the way they were thinking. And then one of the key things that we did, so I have lots of stars because most of these pictures are from that, was a showcase where we invited the entire community. We invited the entire Boys and Girls Clubs. We invited parents. We also had the Virginia Director of Education, the Virginia Director of STEM Education come out. And it was such a powerful experience for these students to basically stand in front of some of their work and tell adults, tell their friends, tell their family members about what they accomplished over the summer. So it was kind of like the same format of a science fair. But it also provided opportunities for them to just be praised and celebrated for the amazing work they did over the summer. And then, of course, we ended up with a post assessment, which was the exact same as what they did in the pre assessment. And so now I'm going to get into the manuscript that we were able to publish from this work. It's entitled STEAM Programming as a Pathway to Foster Positive Academic Self Efficacy and Positive STEM Self Concept. And I'll define all of those terms. But here's the QR code. It is published on the Journal of Research in STEM Education. And we were so excited to get this study out there. And that's one thing I want to highlight for some of the students who are on the call. Yes, you may be in a STEM field or a STEM major, but there is still ways for you to publish some of this outreach work. So if you're getting pushback from mentors or advisors who don't see the value, show them that this can be another avenue for you to get published and increase your publication record. So we had a very small team. My mom and one of my professors, she actually ended up being my advisor for my neuroscience degree, Cheryl Dichter. We all worked together to pursue this study, and it was very exciting for us to kind of reimagine what community engaged research looks like when you seek to publish it. So it's very different from just doing the community engagement for the sake of engagement. It's taking it to that next level of having to write a manuscript, having to analyze data, having to get IRB approval. So during the Q&A, I can go over some of those questions because it was challenging, especially when you're in more of the STEM science fields. You don't have to do some of these things, but I can go over what it looks like to create the consent forms, the assent forms. So we had to do a lot of that before we were able to move forward with this study. But just because sometimes things take a little longer does not mean that you stop. So that's another encouragement. Keep pursuing it, even if you have to go outside of your area of expertise or your field. So the first assessment that we did, and like I said, we gamified it to kind of make it fun. This is called an implicit association test. So this is widely used as a research tool, specifically in the social sciences. And what researchers are doing is they're trying to measure the unconscious automatic associations. So you'll take two concepts of interest and you're seeing how quickly someone can associate those two concepts. And I do want to highlight the researchers at the University of Washington are credited with developing this. And another thing that they use this tool for is to just try to find biases that people may be less likely to report. But it's just talking about speed. How quickly are you pairing two seemingly different categories? So in our gamified tasks, we presented the students with a computer screen, and on one side they would see me and STEM, And then on the other side, they would see not me and not STEM. And then a word would flash. And oh, one thing to note is that they were able to import personal information. So like their name, the town, like stuff that that would be characterized as me. And so I just put here myself, but they would actually see like their name pop up. And they would have to press, I think it was E and I on their computer, to see which group that word, comes into. And if I'm not explaining this clearly, I'll be happy to go over it in the Q&A as well. So yeah, so in this case, they would, press the E key to characterize it with the me, category. And then another word will pop up that would be like science or technology, something of that sort. And once again, they would a correct answer would be pressing the E category to put it on the left side. Then the categories would switch. So it would be not me and STEM and then me and not STEM. And they would still have to make sure their brain would categorize. And in this case, the correct answer would be a I for the right side of this, or no, it would be still E for the left side of the screen. And then finally, E. So I guess I was trying to actually show E and I, but I may have mixed those up. But you get the point. Basically, they're trying to see how quickly they can associate these two things. And so during the pretest, not surprisingly, it took them a while to associate themselves with STEM at time one. But we were super excited that over a 5-session program, that time that it took to associate themselves, it wasn't statistically significant, but it was trending towards significance. So that time significantly decreased, and they were able to associate themselves with STEM faster. And we hypothesized that if we continue this research, we continue this program, which we did continue the program, but we did not continue the research. We think that it would reach significance. And then we also looked at this other concept called STEM self-efficacy. And this is basically our belief that we can execute a task. So in this case, their belief that they could do STEM. And so we had these different questions that we asked them in a survey. It was like, I could like science, technology, engineering, arts, math. And then we also asked if they felt that they could get a job in these careers. So that was super exciting. And over the time, so in time one is in black and then time two is in gray. The two groupings that we saw were significance was their ability to like technology. So we did see that increased. And then also getting jobs. So we saw them increase in getting a job in science. That was significant. And then technology and engineering were marginally significant. So we were seeing improvements, and the key thing is that we didn't see anything go down. They all were actually agreeing to pursue these fields or even get a job in these fields, which was super exciting to see. And then what we wanted to do with all of that information was to see if there was any correlations between these two categories. So basically, if they said at time one that they could like science, were they saying by time two that they felt that they could get a job in science? And so here's kind of how it looks. If you see anything in a dark black color, that will show that there's a high correlation between those two things. And if you see anything in a more white, that's indicating that those two things are likely not related. So here's just all the data where we looked at every pair together. And some of the things that stood out was that liking technology or engineering correlated with getting a job or being interested in getting a job in those fields. So that really helped us to know that if you can help a child like a subject, they will feel more empowered to pursue that subject later in life, which definitely makes sense if we even think back on ourselves of like, oh, when I liked science by working in a lab, I had that idea that I could pursue science as a career long term. So just trying to get students who may have started off in the program saying, "Oh, I hate math. I hate science." How can we make it so that they actually like these subjects by the end of the summer? And then the last thing that we looked at was self-concept. This is just a very broad description of like who you are. So basically seeing how they could identify themselves with STEM. And actually what we found was that self-concept remained high. When we looked at questions like, if I work hard, can I accomplish my goals? Am I just as smart as other kids my age? If they felt that they could go to college, our our students really, didn't change. They all had very high self-concept, from the beginning, and the good thing is that it remained at the end. So they still felt that their hard work would pay off, that they were just as smart, and that college was a, option for them. So we were really, really excited about all this data. But all in all, once that summer ended, we continued to do STEAM kits, STEAM tricks, I'm sorry. And then I published the study actually while I was in grad school. But one of the key things was during my time at the University of Virginia, during my time just now at the University of Michigan, during my postdoc, and currently at Boston University and beyond, I still feel very passionate about this work. But it actually started to become a conflict going into the communities, doing these hands-on workshops. It started to take a huge toll on me. And actually, one of my concerned mentors said this quote: "While you're doing community outreach, your colleagues are publishing." And that really crushed me because I was like, I'm trying the best I can. Um, I care very deeply about the community. I don't feel that it's good enough just for me to be a scientist. I want other people to know that they can be scientists too. But I was just torn because, in a sense, he was right. I'm out doing the community outreach. My colleagues are in lab. They're doing more experiments than me. They're publishing more than me. And so I was trying to see, how can I take the wisdom from what my mentor is saying, but also be honest to who I am as a community engaged neuroscientist. And so that's when I decided I need to get more mentors who kind of understand what I'm doing. And I was able to get some business mentors. And one of them actually said, "Have you ever thought about boxing up these in-person events into like a box that someone could just buy online?" And I actually never even heard of such a thing. But then he started to tell me that there were all these other STEM, even some STEAM companies that were doing this. And he said this could be actually a great way for you to scale what you're doing, because you're only one person at the end of the day. So you can't go to every Boys and Girls Club. You can't go to every library, every church, and do this community outreach. But what if you could box up the curriculum and all the materials, and that way the work that you're doing will multiply in a sense. And that's where we birth STEAM kits, because we wanted to actually have the curriculum, have the materials, and scale it out into the community. But one of the quotes that actually frustrated me was that when I started the work for STEAM Kids, one of the first things that another business mentor told me was, "That's not a problem." He basically said like the underrepresentation of women and racial minorities is not a problem that anybody is going to pay to solve. And once again, I was crushed. I was like, I just came up with this idea. I was super excited about this idea. But if it's not a problem, then I don't know what to do. And mind you, this was in 2019, around that time. And then the pandemic happened. And then the tune switched. Oh, that is a problem. People are being shut out of schools. People are being isolated. So they're looking for activities to do at home and in groups socially distanced. And so the tune switch, and there were so many opportunities that came with it. There was the 2020 Go Startup Charlottesville Entrepreneurship Program, which actually helped me get all the business license and documents needed. So during the Q&A, if people have questions about like all that goes into starting a business, I can answer those. Then I participated in this collegiate accelerator program. So if there's any students with a business or even a business idea, I would highly recommend this B.R.A.I.N collegiate program. They will provide you with expert mentorship and coaching, and also an opportunity to pitch your business in a live pitch competition. And there is a nice award for the winners of that. I also participated in the I-Corp program. So once again, those, since you are affiliated with the university, you are eligible for I-Corp, and they provide you with mentorship, coaching, a lot of templates and resources to scale your business. And there's still many more opportunities coming. So once again, try not to fall into the lies or the negativity. Even when people are genuinely concerned about you, you have to filter that and have a solution-oriented mindset of, if someone is not able to help you in that way, find others and find other mentors who could serve as sources of support. So with that, I had a few summary points. Be prepared to pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot. That is something I learned with forming Steam kits, STEAMTRIX, now STEAMKITX. Also find mentors that are suitable for the role. So many of us may have research mentors. They may not be the best mentor to support you in your outreach efforts. And that is actually okay. I learned a few years ago to not get frustrated with people, because they are just they're helping you as much as they can with the capacity that they have. And when you find that they are not the right help, seek other help. And then the last thing is, if you believe in it, persists, even if progress is slow or even if progress has to pause. I was talking with Morgan before we all started this call that the progress on STEAM kits has been pretty slow, and it has had to pause as I'm navigating this postdoc role and the transitions. But I believe in it, so I'm persisting. So for all of you who have a vision, keep persisting there. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is kind of this postdoc phase that I'm in, and kind of what I'm doing in the community outreach, community engaged research realm here. So, as a part of my first postdoc at the University of Michigan, I was I actually started a program called Building Brotherhood and Insight through Neuroscience. BRAIN is the acronym, and then wealth. And if you scan this QR code, it'll bring you up to our website, which is a little outdated. It has the information for last year's event that I'll go over. But this year, I will show the link to register for this event. So the whole idea behind this event was deeply personal for me. My dad is actually navigating a lot of health challenges, and I hypothesized that what if he had a support group of other Black men to lean on and to have these conversations with. And so I attended the Black Men's Brain Health Conference in 2024. And as a part of that, I was approached by two colleagues at the University of Michigan, and they were really like supporting me. They were like, "You can do this event. You can make it happen. We will support you." And they actually were like, "Financially, we will support you." So that was all I needed. Once I knew that I would have some financial support, I set up a Zoom call, and I invited maybe 5 community members that I knew of in the local Michigan area. I also invited 2 of my colleagues that were also neuroscientists, and I just presented the idea. I didn't have a name for it. I didn't have a date. I didn't have a venue, really nothing. And out of that, I think it was maybe 5 people who logged on that Zoom call. our team grew exponentially. So this is all the amazing people who co-created Building Brain Wealth with me. They helped me come up with the name. So we came up with the acronym because I knew I wanted it to be around brain. But I didn't know what else to do. And so we came up with building because we wanted it to be an active process that people could feel like they were a part of. And then we said wealth because if we put health, it might scare people. So we were saying, okay, the play on words that health is wealth. And so that's where we came up with that part. And then really the brain acronym, that was a community thing where we just knew the letters and we all came up with different words that fit that letter. And we voted. We actually created a poll where people could vote for the letters and the words that align most with them. And that's where we got our acronym Brotherhood, Resilience, and Insight through Neuroscience. So it was super powerful for the community to co-labor in that. And another thing is that we wanted to have a platform where Black men could hear from other Black men. Because once again, this is about my dad, and I'm just trying to figure out how can we get a community to rally behind him so that he could prioritize the maintenance of his brain health. And then I soon realized that this was just about the whole community. Like this is a community-wide issue. And so how can we galvanize the community in a way that they would prioritize their brain health? And so with that, we actually ended up creating a phone account. And so for those who are starting things, there's a service called Text Now where you can get a phone number for free. The only thing is you have to just keep using it so that it doesn't get deactivated, which did happen. So we had to switch our phone number. We also created a website. So I started off using a free platform and then we did get a little bit of funding. So I was able to scale to a .com. But for those of you who are starting, there's so many free website builder tools out there. Start small and then scale. And then, of course, Gmail is free. So we set up a free Gmail account. And then what we had to do was we reached out to speakers. So we, as a community, came up with the 4 domains of brain wealth. And then we wanted to find experts that could speak on each of those domains. So we had someone talk about spiritual and social health. This person was a leader in the University of Michigan community that has already done workshops on this. So he was able to utilize some of the tools that he had. And he just had us do so many exercises to cultivate a social network. And it really exposed a lot of gaps where people at the event were starting to realize, hey, I don't have someone who's supporting me in this area. So how can I start to close that gap? Then we also had someone talk about financial and occupational health. There was even a budget template where people could start to be more intentional about that. He also struck a good balance of having fun with your money, but also saving. And how do you do that well? Then for this session, we actually split into 2 separate sessions. So we had 2 facilitators. One, we did a closed door session. So the Black men who attended could feel safe and supported. So it was only Black men were able to go to that session. And then for everybody else, because this was a community event, even though it was catered for Black men, the whole community came out to support. And so all the others, we were in another session talking about our mental and emotional health. And this was really powerful because one of the, I guess, stereotypes that we had was that it was going to be very difficult to get Black men to talk. That could not have been further from the truth. We had to extend that session time double the time that we allocated. We had to literally pull them out of the room and say, like, there's no more time. Like, let's wrap it up. So it was super powerful to see community being created and mental and emotional health being a priority among a population that we generally don't think prioritize it. So it really shattered some of my misconceptions. And then we ended the day talking about physical and environmental health. And this session was actually a workout. So we had a gym owner, a local gym owner in the Michigan community come out And so he would do like a few minutes of a lecture, and then he would randomly say, "Get up," and make us do some form of exercise. And it was really powerful because it was a multi-generational group. We had, I think, as young as a 5-year old, and then as old as someone in their 80, maybe even 90s there. So he modified a lot of the exercises for those who needed to sit. And then for the rest of us who didn't need that, he had us working. So it was a really powerful experience to navigate all those aspects of health, also build this network. And then we're going to do it again. So that was super excited to just plant the seed in year one. And here's some of the I skipped over that. Let me go back. Here's some of the pictures from the event. They're kind of small, but all in all, it was so powerful to have the community get together. Another thing that I didn't get to highlight, but it's in one of these pictures, is that I created an award called the Melvin Glenn Best Award. That's my dad's name. And so he is being tasked to maintain his brain health so he can keep presenting that award every year to the next winner. So he actually won the award in year one. And then we're going to award that every year to whoever gives the best quote about what does building brain wealth mean to them. And so super excited about this. And I did want to highlight that this year we are actually having the event via Zoom. So I would love for all of you, and this is 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so it'll be 10 a.m. your guys' time. But we would love to have the entire community. So we started off with Detroit, Michigan, but now that we're on Zoom, we're expanding all over the world. We even have people from Tanzania who have registered to attend. So we're so excited, and we know it's going to be even more powerful than we could have even imagined. And so with that, the summary of this is start with the community. So it's a true co-creation model where yes, I had an idea, but I didn't know what it would be called. I didn't know anything much after that. But the community really filled in the gaps and created something that resonates with them. The next is that it's okay not to collect data. So with the STEAMTRIX experience, we did collect data, but with this, we didn't. And I actually feel okay with that. I am getting a little bit of pressure from some of my mentors that this year we need to do like a pre and post. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. But yeah, just grapple with that. It's a tough conversation, but you do what's best for whatever your outreach needs. And then the last is fundraise some more. So for this past year, we were able to get some funding through the Alzheimer's Association and also the University of Virginia Injury and Prevention um, organization. So it was super exciting that we had that seed funding, and this year we're just going to keep fundraising to scale it even more. So with that, here is my email for those who are watching virtually. Do not hesitate to well, I guess everyone's watching virtually, but those who are watching the replay is what I meant. Do not hesitate to email any questions that you may have. And then I also have these QR codes. There's a link to my personal website. There's a link to my LinkedIn. And then I'm also open for Calendly calls. So I think the times are listed in Eastern Standard Time, but I'm happy to accommodate your schedule. If you want to hop on a call, if you want to co-create, if you want feedback on things, I'm happy to be a resource for that. But this is a great time for question and answers. So thank you. I do see some things in the chat. But yeah, I'm here, so happy to answer anything that you may want more information on. Thank you.